Is the iPhone 16 worth it here in 2026? Should you buy it? And the answer is yes, but with a condition. So what is up, guys? Nick here, helping you to master your technology. And should you buy the iPhone 16 in 2026? This is going to be a couple-year-old value pick now, and the prices range from anywhere between $400 and about $755, $780, somewhere around there. They do go up when you go up in the storage tier, and if you buy it at retail, which I don't recommend. If you buy it directly at the main stores, they're likely going to still charge a pretty penny because it is a brand new iPhone. The iPhone 17 came out and made this phone's display pretty much irrelevant with the ProMotion panel. However, that still doesn't matter to every single buyer out there, and we could be looking at a big discount and a substantial savings over the 17, and for that reason, many users might still dig the iPhone 16. So let's go ahead and discuss its key specs really quick and talk about if those are going to be a worth it value pick here if you're deciding on buying this now in 2026. So we're looking at a 6.1 inch 2556 by 1179 pixel display. Now for this is a Super Retina XDR panel, but it's not the Super Retina XDR ProMotion. So it's still basically the same thing. It's OLED, it's HDR10 support. It's pretty bright. And for those of you who like a 6.1 versus a 6.3, this can still be a pretty nice panel for you. It does have ceramic shield glass from 2024, but it's not the better scratch resistance that you're going to find now on the 17s. However, you know, it's still okay, and we do have ourselves same resolution, basically 460 pixels per inch, just doesn't scroll quite as fast. Think of it kind of like if you bought a MacBook Air with a 60Hz panel, or you bought the 17, which will be like the Pro displays over there. So this device, 2000 nits outdoors, pretty easy to see overall. So from a display spec perspective, it's pretty good. We do have a dual camera on the rear. This is a 48 megapixel plus 12, so not quite the same as the 17, but it'll get the job done, and pretty much in the main camera, no substantial issues. Let's go ahead and bring in a little lens here, and we'll go ahead and take a photo here with the camera control button. And you'll find your regular photos are going to turn out absolutely phenomenal, as will your video, and you'll still be able to zoom up to 10 times, 6 times in video. But definitely, essentially, it's going to be nearly the same experience until you get over here to the front display and you realize your camera is nowhere near as wide as the newer iPhone 17. And that's not really the biggest issue to everybody. But generally, this phone kind of still has a really good camera. I mean, it's not like it wasn't a flagship. It was their entry-level flagship just the year before the 17. So I think from the camera area, it's still definitely worth it, the iPhone 16. Now this phone, from a sheer performance perspective, we're looking at the Apple A18 chip on here, which is not quite A19 or A19 Pro level, but this chip is still plenty fast enough. It just doesn't launch as smoothly with their 60 hertz panel. We do have a high clock speed though of 4.04 gigahertz, and we also do have ourselves 8 gigabytes of RAM. Now, 8 gigabytes of RAM, I always felt like on an iPhone is closer feeling to like 12 gigs on an Android, just based on like how optimized and simple iOS is. However, with Apple Intelligence and more applications becoming more powerful, I still prefer 12. But at 8 gigs, you know, if you're going to pay a discount and get this phone at a discount, I still think this is okay. I do like the ultramarine color here. I do have to say that. Now, when we talk about the battery spec here, you know, this is definitely something that you might want to consider as well. I do have a low power right now, but 3561 is a pretty sizable unit. I mean, it's not the biggest, but this phone doesn't get too hot under use. It doesn't stress too much. I found it doesn't get too warm, so it's pretty comfortable to use day to day, and it pretty much lasts day to day. Now, looking at the body and the build of this device in 2025, this is a great pick for sure if you're going to save substantial money. Did I say 2025? 2026. If you're going to save substantial money, because look at this. It's the exact same look as the iPhone 17, and some people might have preferred that ultramarine color. You're going to find yourself the same action button, same volume rockers, and at the bottom, you're going to see USB-C on both of them. So it's basically the exact same design as the iPhone 17. And while the iPhone 17 does offer features that make it the better pick, you're going to pay a couple $100 more for that phone. And that could be a substantial difference for people who just don't care about, paying that extra money for those few features. A lot of people will, but still, this is a really, really nice phone. I think from the back, most people wouldn't even be able to tell that this is an iPhone 16. They might, if they know the colors, they might know, but they'll be like, is that the 17, the 16? Like, they're not going to know essentially. One of the great things about this phone is that it has a 170 gram weight. So it's very, very light to hold this device. And you really do feel this compact feel day to day. While it's not as compact as something like a previous iPhone mini, holding this product in the hand ergonomically feels pretty good. Not quite as smooth on the edges as the unibody iPhone 17 Pro and Pro Max, but overall it's still very smooth, and it does feel nice on the back. It doesn't get dirty because the edges are aluminum here. The back is a pure matte textured glass, so we don't really tend to pick up too much fingerprints. You can get them a bit there in the Apple logo, but when we are, using this day to day, even if you don't use a case on this phone, it doesn't really get too dirty. So this is a clean and light design. Very similar to the iPhone 15 as well, but they went vertical with the camera, which definitely makes it look a bit better. Now, if you're buying this in terms of software, it's a definite go. I mean, we do have ourselves the same iOS 26 software that you're going to find on the newer phones, so that doesn't virtually change at all. You have all the same controls. Essentially, you'll have all the same customizations. Pretty much everything is identical. So, and it runs pretty good as well on here. So it's not like you're behind. If you picked up an iPhone 16, this will do just fine in this department. And you still have several years of upgrades left, probably at least 4 on this phone. So you're nowhere near behind if you were to want to pick one of these up used or, refurbished or, discounted somewhere in some way. I just think that if you're buying it brand new and you start getting up in the $600-$700, $750 range, you might be better off just going with a 17. But if you can find this on a deal, that's the key word of this phone right now. If you're picking one up and you found it at a good price, somebody's maybe handing it off to you, selling it for cheap, still in good condition, you're looking at a pretty good value here on this phone. If you can live with 60 hertz, that's the key separator. If you could live with that, for sure, it's going to be a pretty solid deal. So further expanding on that camera department, this phone did bring camera control over here, and you can go ahead and click the camera button right there. We also do have ourselves video modes right here that can go up to 4K 60, so the resolution is pretty solid, and we do have different styles, exposures, action modes. I mean, all the stuff that you would probably want in an iPhone camera, the majority of the main things are here, even macro mode on this phone. Zoom's pretty decent at 2x because they crop in on that second sensor. And so generally, I think you find a pretty well-suited suite of features here for the majority of casual users, regular users. You're not behind, really. You don't zoom as far as top zooming phones, but you just have to weigh how much you really need to do that zooming. On that front-facing camera we talked about earlier, it doesn't zoom quite as far out, but it still does have 4K 60 recording, so it can match up to the rear and still give you very high resolution front-facing videos. So, and photos are pretty decent. It just, again, doesn't go that far out as the other devices. So you might have to extend that arm a little bit more if you're taking group photos, group selfies, and things of the sort. Now, this phone also is eSIM only, so do keep that in mind. They've been like this for a while, and this one's no exception. So you're going to have to go ahead and go with eSIM if you're coming from a phone that does have a SIM card slot. Do keep that in mind if you're not on iPhone already. This doesn't have the latest Bluetooth standards. It does have 5.3. It doesn't have Wi-Fi 6E, but it does have 7, so that's very good, so it can connect very fast. This USB-C is type 2.0, so it's not like the fastest USB-C, and it's not, charging as quick as some of the newer phones. It is a display port, so you can beam this up to a monitor, although it's not going to turn it into a full-fledged computer like a Samsung S25 Index or anything like that. So do keep that on mind. And you can also go ahead and use Face ID just like any other phone. No Touch ID integrated in this scanner, so I don't think that's a Touch ID button like you'll find on an iPad Air, although I always thought they should put Touch ID right there on the iPhone 16. That would be nice. You can also get this phone in teal. You can get it in pink. You can also get this phone, and that pink's a hot pink. It's not like the iPhone 15 right here, which is more of a pink. It's more like a, a hot pink for the pink for this one. And you'll find it in white and standard black. So those are just some of the color options here. Now, the general real world use of this phone feels like I'm using the same thing as the 17. The 17 just gives me a bigger, more pro display. That's really the substantial difference here. This is a lighter, more simple iPhone with just simple specs, and they do all the things just fine. It's basically a flagship phone that doesn't have a flagship refresh rate. Let's just put it that way. That's how I look at it. Some people think that 120 hertz and that stuff is not even a flagship feature, and you would have some merit in saying that, because a lot of cheaper phones do have that. Like, there's phones that have 120 hertz displays that are nowhere near as powerful as the iPhone 16 that has its 60 hertz display. But generally, I think if you can find this $300 discounted over an iPhone 17, I mean, that's a big discount. We're talking you could buy a whole Apple Watch plus this for that difference, just to have a slightly smoother, well, it's not slightly, but definitely smoother display. The speaker also gets very loud. I measured somewhere around 26 decibels. So it's fairly loud, and it is dual speaker, unlike the iPhone Air. So there's actually a couple of things that make the 16 more desirable than the iPhone Air, and that is dual camera, and we do have a relatively loud speaker. So back in bringing it all together, back to the main question of this video, is the iPhone 16 worth it here in 2026? Should you buy it? And the answer is yes, but with a condition. The condition is that you get it a good discount off of the iPhone 17, because the 17 is that much better that you'll want to go ahead and buy this if the prices are very close. But again, if you find this a few $100 cheaper, a couple $100 cheaper, maybe a carrier's throwing a deal, you found a store that has a really good condition one and that's refurbed or anything, and you're just getting a really solid option and deal on this phone, then I still think this is worth it. But other than that, I would just probably jump up to the iPhone 17. So that's my take on what I think is going to be a value pick. This kind of reminded me of the iPhone 11 back in the day, when the iPhone 11 was such a good deal a couple years later, because it had a lot of good main specs you needed, but you just had to deal with the 60 hertz. It's kind of the same thing here with the iPhone 16. So let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section of this video. Thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and subscribe if you haven't already. I will catch you all in the next episode, and you might like this video if you enjoyed this one. Be sure to be well, and peace.